Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and these are my thoughts on The Giver by Lois Lowry. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, time for another instalment of my thoughts on one of my picks for my science fiction for the somewhat hesitant series, my big old science fiction reading project to get me into some science fiction classics. This time it is the turn of The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is part of the YA interlude for September. I read this in September before we go into another stint of some adult classic sci-fi. So this is set in a seemingly utopian, futuristic community where there's no pain, war, hunger, misery, even like bad weather. Everyone kind of seems quite placid and quite content with their place in the world. And we meet Jonas, who is a 12-year-old boy who is about to find out what profession he's kind of been assigned to for the rest of his life. And he's very surprised to be selected as the new receiver of memories, an extremely important role, which entails being the holder of all of the community's past memories of both joy and pain. So he begins his training with the Giver, who is the elderly man who is currently the receiver of memories. So he has to give all of these memories to Jonas. And as Jonas experiences, love, colour, pain, the true depth really of human emotion and feeling, for the first time, he comes face to face with the dark truth behind the community's kind of placid facade. And so burdened by this new knowledge, Jonas, along with the Giver, plan to restore freedom and memory to the world, even if it means facing some dire consequences. So my thoughts on it then. I'm probably going to upset a few people because I know that this is an extremely well-loved book. I didn't hate it, I'll say that straight up. I didn't hate it. It was just okay, I think. For me, it just was kind of like, all right, okay. I wasn't particularly wowed by it. I liked the premise. I liked some of the kind of the concepts in it, the world building, etc. And I appreciated some of the important messages that were being discussed in it, like freedom, individuality, privacy, that kind of thing. But I think just the way that it was done for me, and this may well be because I am coming to it as a mid-40s adult, that it just didn't really have the impact for me. It felt in a lot of respects quite bland, I have to say. The characters I felt were quite bland, and this may be a part of the fact that the society is quite bland. Do you know what I mean? It is very placid. Everybody's kind of happy with their place, and everybody is quite bland. There's no individuality, and so that may well have been intentional, but it wasn't. It didn't make it an interesting experience. It just felt quite bland. And as I say, the characters, the difference between characters in terms of character voices, there wasn't a huge amount there. The character depth wasn't really there. Jonas wasn't too bad, and I did very much like the character of the Giver. But for instance, Jonas's family, his mum, his dad, and even his little sister kind of sounded just the same as the parents, and each friend kind of Jonas's sounded kind of the same. And yes, sameness is a big thing in the society. It's what it operates on. But that doesn't necessarily make for the most engaging reading experience, I think, in terms of the way that it was handled. I think the thing that I liked the least about it was the writing style. I didn't get on with it. It felt quite simplistic, and that may just be, again, because it's aimed at a younger audience, so in terms of, you know, comprehension, things like that, then I can understand if it's you know, kind of written with a more simple style in mind. But it did feel a little like it was written for the purposes of discussion, rather than as a great story that happened to then become a great work to discuss, say, in the classroom. I don't know whether this is the right word for it, but the word I've got in my head is didactic. So yeah, that was something that I kind of think just was a little bit, it was a little bit of a block for me in terms of really getting involved in the story. So yeah, it just wasn't for me, the writing style. And as again, I can understand why it's written, how it is, if it's aimed at that age group. But for me, and I can only go on how I'm reacting to it now, it just wasn't, didn't really engage me particularly. The world building, I liked the premise. I liked some of the ideas in it. I liked some of the ideas of the way that the society worked. I think some of that was done really well. But it just felt a little underdone, I think, for me. Again, it was just like, it felt like there were a lot of questions raised about the world and how it worked that weren't necessarily answered. It felt like it could be fleshed out a bit more, and maybe it is fleshed out a lot more, because I know this is only the first in a quartet of books. So let me know in the comments if actually it goes into more detail about the society and stuff. You know, the world building is kind of expanded upon. But yeah, it was you know, it's an interesting premise for sure. I liked the premise. I just wanted to know more. Plot wise, it was fine. It was okay. It was, you know, it's quite a short book, and it wasn't at all a drag to get through or anything like that. I kind of read it quite quickly and quite easily. So yeah, the plot was fine. There was, you know, there was you know, some interesting plot points, and certainly some sort of some tension and things like that, especially when Jonas is waiting to find out what profession he's been assigned to, and it's all a bit, you know, kind of, he doesn't really know what's going on. The ideas in it were, you know, as I say, interesting, and certainly interesting to take into the classroom. I think they're good things to be discussing in terms of things like freedom, individuality, understanding human emotions, feeling, etc., and how they are an inherent part of our nature, things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's some good ideas in it, and I do think it kind of handled those well, especially considering what age group it's aimed at. But my enjoyment overall, I think, with it was just kind of like, it's okay. As I say, it's okay. It didn't blow my mind. I kind of wanted more from it, but I think maybe I'm being a little too harsh on it with that, in terms of you know, acknowledging who it's aimed for. It's not aimed at me in my 40s. But as a dystopia, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I think that's the best I can say about it. It's okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. So I will pop my ratings up on screen, and we'll whip through these. So yeah, character I've given a 5 to. They were fine, but they just weren't very, you know, there wasn't a lot there, and they were quite bland. Atmosphere and world building I've given a 6 to. As I say, I liked the premise, I liked some of the ideas in it, I just wanted it to be expanded upon a bit more. Writing gets a 5. It wasn't bad writing by any means, but it's just not for me. Plot is a 6, as I say, that was fine. Don't have any major issues with it, but it didn't kind of, you know, wow me. Ideas I've given a 7 to. Yep, I do think there are some really interesting ideas in this, and great, certainly, you know, really important ideas to be discussing. And enjoyment, I've given it a 6. As I say, it was okay. It was fine. I'm glad I've read it, but yeah, I have no interest in continuing on with the quartet. I'll say that. I'm glad I've read this one, but I won't go back to it. So if we add all of those scores up and divide by 6, we get a 5.83 out of 10. I will round that up to a 6 out of 10, and it's a 3-star on the story graph. So there we go, folks. That's where I come down on it. It was okay. It wasn't bad. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to recommend it to anyone, but I certainly wouldn't want to put anybody off reading it. I still think it's a decent enough book, and certainly for a younger age group, I think it could still be extremely useful read, extremely important read. I think I'm just coming to it at the wrong time, having read quite a few other much darker, much more engaging dystopias, both adult dystopias and modern young adult dystopias as well, which I think there's some of those which just hit a lot harder, and that's just what I look for in a dystopia. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on The Giver. I did have another YA science fiction on my list for September, which was The Maze Runner. I did start this. I got about 5 or 6 hours in and I DNF'd. I was not engaged with it at all. Now this could be down to the fact that my slump was probably starting around the same time as starting that one, but I didn't like the characters. That was the main thing. I didn't like the characters in it at all. I was getting quite irritated by them, and again, that could have just been my mood. But I wasn't enjoying it, so I put it aside. I wasn't going to force it. And I may well come back to that in the future and give it another go. I do own it on audiobook, so I may well try it again, because I do like the premise of that, and I did quite like the film. So I may return to that, but for now, it's classed as a DNF for now. So that's my science fiction for September, for my big old science fiction project. October, we are back into the adult stuff. We are into a couple of different sort of themed groups, if you like, for my project. The first one is Accessible Groundbreakers, and the first of those will be The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. And the other group is Queer Sci-Fi, and for that I'm going for Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, which is Lesbian Necromancers in Space. Science fantasy on that one. So those are the books I'll be getting through this month in October. So my reviews, my thoughts, etc. videos will be out for those probably in November. But that will do from me today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do let me know if The Giver is one of your favourites from being a kid, in which case I'm sorry that I didn't have more glowing things to say about it. Or let me know, obviously, if you've had a similar reaction to me with it, especially if you've read it as an adult. I'd be interested to know where I sit in the general kind of range of views on this one. I will be back on Sunday with another video, so I do hope you will join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.